Hi, in this video I will show you how to configure three type of address translation, which is dynamic NAT, second part, and also static NAT. So I have mentioned to you which network need to be translated using which type of NAT. So first I will configure dynamic NAT for network 192.168.1.0. So what I have to do is I need to first read the specification of the IPv4 addressing table, where I need to create a pool, a NAT pool, which have a range of address, public address 200.200.200.5 until 200.8, and just follow the configuration in the lab. So let's do it together. Let's just first create the pool, IP-NAT pool, and then give the name of the pool as NAT pool. Please note that the parameter NAT pool is written in capital letters, which means that the name of the pool is changeable. And then provide the start address, which is 200.200.200.5, and then provide the end address in the pool, 200.200.200.8, and then configure the net mask, which is either 28.255.255.255.240. Next, what you have to do is you need to create an ACL which explicitly define the source private IP address to be translated into the public IP address in this pool. So we will use standard ACL, access this one, permit 192.168.1.0, 0.0.127. Now we need to bind the private IP address and the supposed translated public IP address using the command. So this is the way you bind the mapping of the private to the public. So IP-NAT inside source list 1. So list 1 is we get it from the access list number, and then the translation for the public IP address, we put the name of the pool. So we are done with the dynamic NAT. Now let us do the static NAT. For the static NAT, according to the addressing table, so we have to translate the server IP address 192.168.1.142 into the public IP address, which is 200.200.200.3. So what you have to do is add another line on R1. So IP-NAT inside source static, and then define the private IP address, which is the IP address of the server, and then define the public IP address, which is 200.200.200.3. If you don't know which address to be used, please refer to the IP addressing table in the lab notes. Now we are done configuring the dynamic NAT and static NAT. Let us configure the port address translation. So on the port address translation, what we will do is we will translate network 172.16.1.0 to the interface public IP address of the interface S001. So to do that, make sure you are in global configuration mode. And then create the source IP address, because the relationship now is many to one. So we need to explicitly define the source IP address, but we do not have to create the pool, because the public IP address will be the public IP address for interface S0, interface serial S001. So we start with configuring the access list. Permit 172.16.1.0. So we're using the standard ACL, and right away we will bind this network, this private IP network, to the interface serial S001. You have to use the keyword overload to enable the port address translation. Once we are done with 3 type of static NAT, so now we will start to test the translation. So to test the dynamic NAT, so please go to PC1 and try to ping any public IP address. So in this case, I will ping 200.200.200.2. But you see here that we got a reply. This output is wrong, because supposedly by implementing NAT, there will be a separation of private and public network automatically. So what you have to do is we need to create the separation. So on R1, please go to all interface and start doing and declaring the placement of the IP NAT inside and IP NAT outside. So here, for all sub interface, I will define it as IP NAT inside, and for the serial interface, I will declare it as IP NAT outside. You have to do the same for R3. Now we repeat the testing. So you can see here in the translation, initially I ping from PC1, which address is 192.68.1.126. So here you can see that the private IP address has been translated into 205, and this is the outside local and outside global. So if you see here, if I try to ping the PC2, so the ping will not be successful because you cannot ping a private IP address since the separation has been implemented. The separation of the private and public network has been implemented. Now let us try to test static NAT and also a pipe. So from PC2, I will try to ping the server using the private IP address. So the ping will not be successful because again the private IP address is not routable. So what I will do is I will ping the public IP address of the server, which is 200.200.200.3. So now we get the replies from the server. So what happened here is we cannot ping the private IP address, but we can only ping and communicate using the public IP address of the server. So on R1, when I put show IP NAT translation on both sides, so you can see the translation for both. Okay, so this one on this part is the ping that we have performed to the 142 using the private IP address. The translation is there, but no communication happened. So later we ping using the public IP address and the ISMP packet is returned. On R1, you can see that the 200.3 is translated into from 142 and the communication is from network from the PC2, but you cannot see IP address of PC2 here because now the PC2 is the IP address of PC2, the private IP address of PC2 is translated into public IP address of serial S001. Okay, this part is the previous communication before we perform the separation of IP NAT inside and IP NAT outside. Okay. So in the next part, you will learn about the ACL using NAT public IP address.